And now, after years of planning, sweating, and going broke, here is the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
I'll alert the media.
Why they would give this man a podcast is anyone's guess.
Then there is what could only be a bizarre coincidence or something else.
Welcome to the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
Country music and fine moonshine. Finally, a podcast that lets it all hang out.
Let's level with America.
Got your boots? Ready for some whiskey?
These boots are made for walking.
One of these days, these boots are gonna walk all over you.
And now, the Boots and Whiskey Podcast with Jim Belisle.
Hey everyone, Jim here, Boots and Whiskey Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the show. So today we have Trenton Fletcher. Not Trenton Fletcher. Trenton Fletcher. My God. Sorry, we're recording this after a huge Patriots win, but headed back to the Super Bowl. Little off topic. I have not enjoyed the Patriots ever in my entire life, and I've lived in New England my entire life. I grew up during the Brady era. You know, I think like the first Super Bowl was my freshman year in high school. Yeah, it had to have been because it was right after 9/11. I'm going on a little tangent here before we get to Trenton Fletcher, which will make a lot of sense once you get into the episode. But huge AFC win. It's storming like a motherfucker outside. You know, if you're paying attention to the news at all or live in the area, you know we're getting a shit ton of snow. And by the time you're watching this, we're digging out from that snow. But anyway, long story short, I don't even know what my point was exactly. Glad to see Drake May doing well. Kid seems like he's got it. Vrabel is probably the best coach in the NFL. We'll see what happens in 2 weeks in California against whoever wins. At the time I'm recording this, I don't know who has won the Rams-Seahawks game. My guess is probably going to be the Seahawks, but who am I? I'm not a fucking expert. But anyway, long story short, Trenton Fletcher is here. This episode is quintessential Boots and Whiskey Podcast. If you've never been here before, and this is your first time coming to us to hear Trenton's story, you're getting a fuck around and find out kind of episode where we talk about the most random shit in the entire world, and it's awesome. It's so good. So we're going to just leave it at that. We're going to let you digest whatever you think that means, and we're going to turn it upside down on its head starting right now. So Trenton, thank you so much for being here. If you're new here, thank you for being here. If you're not new here, also thank you for being here. You know what to expect. Enjoy it. Cheers, guys.
You gotta love technology, man. Fucking sucks.
Oh yeah. I don't. It may just be my old laptop. I know I've got good internet out here, but this laptop's on its last leg.
So what were you saying about? Because I was like super enthralled about the whole building buildings that were, you know, pretty intense for nobody living there. Because I've never heard this. Yeah. So now I'm intrigued.
I'm definitely gonna butcher this.
That's all right.
But it'll give you kind of the direction of where I pulled this stuff from. So I've always been, you know, obsessed with the pyramids and ancient architecture and different conspiracy theories that surround those and whatnot. Anyways, back to like the state capitol buildings and a lot of these crazy buildings built in North America. A lot of them are credited with the same architect, or says they built it in like 6 months, built it in a year, you know, when we can't do anything even close to that construction nowadays. And there's a few where they say this certain architect would make like 10 of these magnificent buildings across the country, all within the same time frame of a year or 2 years. And it really starts to stop adding up. And, you know, you start looking into the relatives of these architects and what happened to their family line, and like a lot of them like died and didn't leave descendants. And it's just this kind of dead end every time you start looking into this. And so the theory is that a lot of these buildings are either older than they're claimed to have been built, or something happened around the Civil War time, around that area, sometime mid 1800s, late 1800s, that allowed kind of the narrative of history to be written differently, where a few of these buildings kind of have different stories than what we're told. And like I said, I'm butchering it completely, but there's a few YouTube channels I follow that are really good about this. There's a guy, I can't remember where he was a professor at, but he's a professor of history at a pretty prestigious university. I think his YouTube channel is Lucius Aurelian. I think it's Lucius Aurelian or Lucian Aurelius. It's a YouTube channel. There's another one called My Lunch Break that's really cool, that kind of does some deep dives and brings the receipts on the stuff. And then as far as like the Egyptian and ancient world stuff, there's a Ben Van Kerchwick with Uncharted X. I love that channel. And so all these kind of channels like that are how I spend my free time. And I've been obsessed with the state capital theories lately. There's some pretty cool ones. So now I've been trying to make it a habit. Anytime we go tour somewhere, I want to go see whatever old world buildings are, it's allegedly old world buildings. And so I got to see the Iowa State Capitol in Des Moines a couple months ago. I got to see some cool buildings in Chicago. Milwaukee had some badass buildings that the stories are wild on those. But yeah, check into that, see what you think, because it's one that's kind of new to me that I've been diving into.
Yeah, dude, definitely. Honestly, have you ever been up in New England?
I haven't. I have not. We're going to New York in October. But I've never been up that way.
Dude, you want to talk about old? Like,
yeah,
obviously, like compared to like Europe and shit like that, like it's relatively new, right? But like the next town over from where I lived 3 doors down from the oldest meeting house in the country.
Wow.
Right? Like it, and like you look at it and you go into it, and it's everything you would imagine. It was absolutely incredible.
Dang,
and like you look at stuff now where it's like, you go into Boston and like there's still cobblestone streets, depending on where you go, and like there's just so much. Like there's so much you don't even realize how much there is, if that makes sense.
Wow. Yeah, I definitely want to get up there and spend a few days and have some time to kill, because I hate just going in somewhere and then having to leave the next morning, not having any time to explore, which I'm there on business, really. But
right.
It's always nice when you can spend a couple extra days and dive into the local stuff.
Now, are you going to New York City, or are you going to like New York State?
No, we're going to, I guess it would be New York State. We're playing, it's like a party before a wedding. So it's like a little private deal for a wedding out there in Accord, New York, I guess. Yeah, but that'd be my first time up that way.
I lost your video. There you go.
Oh, it gave me a notification, add a hand gesture, and I guess I had to
add a hand gesture.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome, man. Like so why ancient history? I know this is not music related and all that, but that's like, I warned you, this is not what we necessarily do. But like, why ancient history?
Man, there's so many reasons. Obviously, like the pyramids are a big one, and I've never believed that they're tombs. I think that's the most absurd. That's the most absurd explanation. They're not tombs at all.
This is a hot take. We might go viral for this take.
Let's do it, because this is
hold on.
Yeah,
are you going to tell me the aliens built them too?
And I don't think aliens built them. I think.
All right.
I think it comes down to frequency and vibration. Have you seen I can't remember what they're called, like the flat planes that they'll amplify with frequency and at certain volumes, and the grains of sand on it will isolate into geometric patterns.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it's kind of maybe, and this is just a theory too, I've seen people talk about this, but if you can make grains of sand, which are just chunks of granite and chunks of stone, act a certain way and react a certain way towards sound and frequency, technically you can scale that up. There's nothing that says there's a cap to that. So, I mean, I think there's a way you could potentially scale that up and impose that on large chunks of stone. And I don't know. I think that's one possibility. I'm not the guy that's going to be out here trying to solve it. I just want to be interested and see who's out there solving it. But I think that it's pretty weird how. Okay, I guess the thing that made me really start digging in and questioning things was whenever someone does question the narrative, especially 10 years ago plus, someone's questioning the narrative of anything, but archaeology is very hardcore on this. There's all this pushback and censorship, and in what world should something be brought up and talked about and asked about, and it's just shut down immediately? And then you start looking at their reasonings. Well, we know with certainty this and that. Well, these are the same things that were said 100, 120 years ago when they discovered these places. And the same people that have been ringing that same bell for all this time are the ones that built their entire careers upon that idea. And so if they discredit themselves, they're discrediting their entire career. And I think it's pride and ego. It's human nature that stops that a lot of times. Stops the flow of information and the pushing forward of new ideas. Yeah. And I think that's why the internet has been so contagious with these, quote, pseudo ideas. Right. It's just opening the door for people to have opinions and do their own research.
Yeah, I remember there was a time there was a younger version of me that would have like died on certain hills, right? But like we live in a time where there's not even an ability for a conversation, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, like, why not? Like I remember, what was it, Christmas Day? I had posted on my, I'm probably going to get a ton of shit for this, but I posted on my personal Facebook page, like every now and again, I'll do like deep dives into history, like the stories you're not told.
Right.
And there was a part of the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson wrote all about more or less the abolishment of slavery, right? And at the time, the Second Continental Congress, they voted on every line. It wasn't like so they got to this point where it was like, Thomas Jefferson writes in the original version of the Declaration of Independence, pretty much like slavery is bad. It's not going to keep the Union to, whatever, right? Yeah. It's not sustainable. It's not right. It's whatever. And there was two colonies that voted against it. And it was Georgia and South Carolina, right? So the other 11 agreed, and the other 11 agreed, and these two said no. So it was like an all or nothing kind of thing at the time. Yeah. And oddly enough, those are the two states that the Civil War would eventually start. It's just so, it's like those things are so fascinating, where right, it's like, we could have skipped a whole mess of shit if, it's just wild.
It is wild, man. And I wish I would have absorbed more of the information growing up. I was fortunate enough to have a really good history teacher, and shout out Coach Worley, former defensive coordinator. But he really kind of made me look at history in a different lens as well. And I still talk to him to this day. We'll send each other YouTube videos and all kinds of conspiracies and stuff. And it's cool that, going from a place where you just have to read and learn what the curriculum tells you in school. That's one lens. It's one thing. It's this way or the highway. Yeah. And then seeing just how out in the open, like there's people out here making crazy informational channels and videos that never even sniffed a history degree. It's just people that are passionate, putting all their time and effort and energy into a thing. And I think that just goes to show, like, kind of the college conversation we're having earlier, it's possible to do these things and succeed without going that route. And if anything, like, that route kind of holds you back because, I think a lot of people grow to, resent the thing they spent so much time loving.
Yeah.
And if you just let it organically happen, people are going to want to seek the truth, and they're going to want to do the right research. Kind of in today's age, I mean, people that are frauds really get sniffed out.
Yeah.
And, with the fact checking and just, Google and AI at our fingertips now, I mean, it's really not hard at all to find out if someone's telling you the truth within a few minutes. And, I think that's why you see so many of these mainstream narratives so forcibly, like, trying to just hold down the ideas, and they're just kind of falling apart at their fingertips now. And I don't know, we're in an interesting timeline where shit's changing quick, and the flow and freedom of information is just right there at our disposal. And
Yeah.
so I'm interested to see where this continues to go, especially with ideas on history.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so funny to, talk about this because I love this shit like so much. And it's,
Yeah.
it's sometimes it's hard to like bring into conversation, right? But like, I've gotten to the point where it's like I don't give a fuck anymore, where it's like I'm going to talk about whatever I want to talk about. And
Right.
like that's kind of why I do this show the way I do it, right? Because and I've always said it from the word go, where I like what you're doing music wise, right? I think it's great. It's got a great sound. It's it's familiar, raw, and authentic, right? And it's great. It's all well and good, whatever, right? But like I'm a big proponent of, if people don't know the people behind the music, I don't think they can get the full appreciation of the music, if that makes sense.
That makes perfect sense. Absolutely. Yeah. My fiance got me a shirt for Christmas last year that I wear at shows all the time. It says Göbekli Tepe on it.
What does it say?
Göbekli Tepe? You're familiar with Göbekli Tepe? Okay, here's another one. So Göbekli Tepe is a site in Turkey. I believe this farmer was kind of plowing around in his field, and he hit a rock, and he started digging it up, and it's this weird T-shaped rock. And so he went and notified some archaeologist or somebody important, and so they excavated this hill, but it was a hill in the middle of this flat field, and so it was a man-made hill. They excavated the site, and they dug it out and carbon dated any organic matter that was at the bottom of it, and it came back to, I want to say, 10,800 BC. And so it's like the old, at the time it was the oldest confirmed archaeological site in the world, like a confirmation with actual carbon dating. And so that was, I think, like 2016, 2017 maybe, and it's kind of blowed up since then, and it's been kind of the spear and the chink of the armor of the mainstream narrative that civilization started 4,000 years ago or wherever they say. And so it's these things that keep being found that continuously push back the timeline of organized civilization, advanced civilizations. And so like in the site there's all these T-shaped pillars, and there's certain like holes carved through the pillars that line up perfectly with like uh, different like stars and like solstices and whatnot, but they only line up if you backtrack the cosmos to where the stars would have been 10,800 years ago. So not only is it kind of this carbon dated proof, but it's also, if you rewind the cosmic clock, you can kind of see, what they were aligning the building and the construction towards. And then they've got all these different constellations of animals and stuff that were familiar at the time. They've got all these constellations kind of carved in these pillars and stuff, and it's just a really cool site. And then it also ties in with the idea that the mainstream narratives continuously try to suppress and censor these new discoveries and these new thoughts. And it's the same thing. Like the government over there is kind of halting all digging. They planted olive trees, and over there it's illegal to cut down olive trees, I believe. And so they planted all these olive trees knowing they can't be cut down, and their roots destroy the structures underneath. And so there's all this active just halting of people coming over there and studying it and excavating it. And so that's one thing that, 15, 20 years ago, it would have been allowed to happen because no one would have knew it. But now with the internet, you've got everybody beating down their door, forcing their hand to let people come over and study it. And so I've got a shirt that says Göbekli Tepe on it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool
now,
stuff.
Let me ask you this, right? Because you seem to be into it. You hear about all of these things, right? We know about, the pyramids or whatever, like, and then, all of these ancient civilizations being able to do things that we can't even do with modern technology, right?
Right.
Now, do you think there was something that had happened where their technology was more advanced than ours is currently, and then something happened and like we just don't have that information anymore?
Absolutely. And this is kind of getting to the meat and potatoes of like the stuff that I like to read about. So I'm a big Graham Hancock fan. I've got a ton of Graham Hancock books, and big Randall Carlson fan. I follow both those guys religiously, and Graham is kind of the one that got me into this idea of an ancient civilization, coming and going, and us being a civilization with amnesia. And how that fits together with a group of different fields of study is the Younger Dryas theory. Are you familiar with like the Younger Dryas era? So the Younger Dryas era is this thing that happened around 10,800 years ago, the exact time that Göbekli Tepe was intentionally buried across the globe. And so by carbon dating and by looking at like these burn layers and the strata in the soil, the geographic layers, and like these little spirals of like intensely heated up silicon that come from the atmosphere. So there's all this evidence of an airburst explosion or some type of cataclysm that occurred roughly 10,800 BC. And how that kind of ties in with everything is you see like a severe bottleneck in human genetics at the exact same time. And so that kind of interests me. I took some genetics courses at OSU too, and I was just always super into genetics. And so you see this bottlenecking of certain genes and expressions of these genes in populations across the country or across the world. And what they believe happened is at the end of the last ice age, we were coming out of this ice age and civilizations were thriving. We have this airburst, which is a meteor that comes, and instead of striking the Earth, it explodes above the Earth. And we have evidence that this has happened in recent history with the Tunguska event in Siberia. I think it was the late 1890s. And it's this comet type thing that just comes in the atmosphere and explodes over the ground. And instead of just a solid impact, it does a lot more damage because it explodes before it hits the ground. And so they think a bunch of these kind of comets came into the atmosphere, exploded over the North American ice sheet that was around the edge of it was around Ohio at the time, caused all this massive melting, breaking down of like glacial dams of these glacial lakes, and just caused enormous just flooding over North America and Europe, kind of the Middle East area. All that occurred within a few weeks, and there's evidence of it in Oregon and Washington in the Scablands. You can see where this just massive erosion just came through and just ripped off the bedrock off the face of the earth. You can see it in like northwestern Africa, where you can see there's just bedrock ripped from the face of the soil and the face of the planet. And there's a ton of evidence that this was an event that happened. It's pretty much confirmed at this point that did happen at that exact time. But what's kind of debated is the cause of it. Some people think it's tectonic, some people think it's airburst, but regardless, it's pretty much accepted that it did happen. And at the same time, you have Göbekli Tepe being intentionally buried. It's the site that this immense amount of work went into, and then it was intentionally buried to be preserved. And so you've kind of got this preservation of this site from the exact same time this happened. And there's just a lot of world events that have been dated back to 10,800 BC. And then pretty much every major ancient culture across the world all has a similar idea or myth of a flood myth. And some of them even date back to around that time, the ones that you can date. So there's just a lot of lot of fingers that point towards this kind of idea. There was a worldwide cataclysm that severely killed off a lot of the population, and the reason that it would kill off a lot of the population of the Earth isn't just from the initial impact. We're coming off of the end of the ice age, so we're warming up. People are kind of out and about. They're farming, doing their thing, right? Well, an impact that big throws all this dust and debris back into the atmosphere, which causes rapid cooling, rapid loss of life. And so pretty much anybody that wasn't in a really protected area or underground would have most likely died. And so that's one theory why you see such severe bottlenecking in genetics.
Huh.
And, I may have butchered a lot of that, but that's kind of my understanding of the course of events, I guess.
When we're done, I'm going to have you text me a lot of this shit because
Yeah.
I need to know more. Like
I'll put you on, dude.
I am notorious of like laying in bed at night and just scrolling fucking doomsday scrolling and just being like, sending people shit like, did you see this? Do you know this? And like, gotta love it. Now, let me ask you this, right?
All right.
With your intrigues, right? Does any of it spill into your music and your writing, or is it just two very different things?
So there are ideas, I guess, that kind of spill into writing, like a lot of the censorship ideas and kind of the idea that there's no questioning the narrative of things. That kind of comes out in a song like Uncle Sam, where I'm just talking about like the government basically is just screwing us all, and we're all working ourselves to death, and they're still got us by the throat and everything. They're in their hands in our pockets, and it's kind of the same things. Like, I guess there is kind of a crossover there, and if there's any crossover, it would just be that, like, I know my purpose on this earth is to create. I know it's to create however that looks, and I know the effect that music has had on me personally. I know it's saved my life. It's the reason I'm here today. And I had this conversation with my best friend that passed away. That was the drummer in my band. We always talked about our purpose being music and being the reason we're doing this. And if one person gets something out of something that we help create, if it just gives them a slight break from their reality on a random night that they hear us play, that's kind of the it factor for us. Like, that's what does it for me. And so if I can kind of embody that and continue to keep that mindset and keep that reason for doing it, I think it all comes together, it all clicks. And so I think if I just chase that genuinely and I, not trying to be something I'm not, I think it all works out.
Yeah. Now, when you start, I know we're going way to the other side now, but when you start writing music, right? Do you write it from a personal perspective, or do you write it from, a different kind of character or a different, lens?
I've tried different ways. The most common way for me is a personal lens, and once I kind of I'm seeing why that's not the most optimal way to do it, because you can only have so many personal experiences. You can only relate to so many people. You can only do so much in a day and in your life, and eventually, a lot of those overlap, and you have the same things happening. And so I think you can't solely write from personal experience, which is how I started. And, maturing and growing older, I've had to realize that's just not a realistic way to continue to write songs. I've written songs as characters. Kind of my favorite one is The Ballad of Bill Dalton. I actually wrote that about an outlaw that died just a mile from right here where I live, right by where I deer hunt. This outlaw died in 1894. He was Bill Dalton, the oldest brother of the Doolin Dalton gang, kind of the second most notorious outlaw gang next to Jesse James. And he had a shootout with the deputy or the marshals down here, and that's how he died. And I always knew that story. You know, there's a ton of cool details that go into it. I always knew that story growing up, and I walked out to where he died, the little home site. It's in the middle of the woods. You can see the depression where the foundation used to be, just by this creek, and there's like a sign, a little granite marker in the ground, and then on the main road there was a granite sign on the side of the road that kind of told the story. And so I kind of wrote that song from the perspective of Bill Dalton as he's dying, like as he's hiding out and as he's dying to his last breath. And I realized I was trying to put way too many details and story in there, and I had to roll it back just enough where it told the story, but it kept people's interest and let them know what was happening.
Yeah.
So that's kind of an example of taking on a character. And then there's ideas too that come from other people that they're like, this is going on in my life. And a good example of that is my buddy Jordan that passed away. We were writing some songs one night, and he always had some really cool ideas on songs. He's like, man, I'm only half the cards I've been dealt. I'm like, that's a song, dude. And so we just started talking about, life experiences, about, you're dealt certain cards at birth, but, half of it is what you make it. And, it's up to you to do with that as you will. And so I wrote this song about his experiences before he passed. And then whenever he passed, I immediately knew I was going to rewrite that song to just make it better and fit the context a little bit better. And I didn't touch it for probably 9 months, 10 months. And then just one night randomly, we're driving back from Mississippi to Oklahoma. I just put on repeat and rewrote the whole thing while we're headed back to Oklahoma at like 6 a.m. So, I mean, there's different ways to do it for me. I don't really try to put it in a box and just decide, like, I'm only going to do my own personal experiences, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I mean, that does make sense. I love that you do that, because I think there is a lot of artists out there that do write from just personal experiences. And you're absolutely right. Like, you only go through so much, right? Until it's repetitive.
Yeah. Yeah. At least in my case. Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think it's, right. Like, I mean, you write love songs, you write breakup songs, whatever, right? Or, whatever.
Yeah.
And there's only, regardless of who it is or what the situation is, every heartbreak and every time you fall in love, it's the same fucking thing. No matter what. The feelings are pretty much the same. It's just the names change.
Yeah, and there is something to be said about like the writers that can write about the exact same experience in a way where it doesn't feel like the same experience. Like that's
Right.
definitely an art in and of itself.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I've dabbled in that a little bit. That's definitely not my forte, but it's something that I could improve at for sure. But I always think it's cool because, you start seeing like this kind of anthology or this like universe of an artist's songs, and you catch little lines here and there that makes you think, is that the same? Are they talking about the same person, the same thing?
Right.
Like I never would have caught that besides that one little Easter egg. And like Turnpike, oh my gosh, Turnpike's the best at it. There's this whole like spider web of references that Evan kind of puts in all these songs, and it's incredible because it tells a story over time, and they reference each other in past records, and
yeah,
that's admirable for sure.
Right. I was thinking about it when you were saying it and talking about the Dalton story, where it's like you even think about somebody like Coulter Wall, right? To write a song like Kate McCannon at that age and sing it the way he does, it's like what fucking world did you come from? Because it's not this one.
Yeah, I'd probably go mad trying to understand how that song came about. I mean, it's nuts.
And it's funny, right? Like I don't know, right? I have a lot of thoughts and opinions about a lot of things, right? And some of them are correct, some of them are not correct. Like I'll be the first to admit, like a lot of my shit is just to stir the pot, right? But you listen to a song like Kate McCannon, and I don't care where you are, and like if you don't stop and say to yourself, you know what, she got exactly what she fucking got. Like, you've never been through anything in your entire life. Whether you actually believe that or not, Coulter has made you believe that she absolutely deserves what ends up happening to her in the end.
Yeah, it's incredible, and like that song's such a good example of that, because you're completely right. I mean, you could be someone that's never been through anything difficult in your entire life, and then you hear that song, and if you pay attention to listen to it, you're like, damn, like she got hers.
Yeah, you're like, yep,
You know?
fuck her. She, but it's
Yeah,
but like when
yeah,
you actually like listen to the song, like there's so much more to it than the surface level too.
yeah, yeah.
And like I think that's and you can see that through all of Coulter's catalog, and I think that's what makes him one of, if not the greatest. And I know I'm going to get a lot of shit from certain crowds, but like he might be the best singer-songwriter in the genre.
I don't think it's a hot take. I think he's definitely up there.
Well, don't tell that to the Tyler Childers people, because they fucking
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I stay in my lane, and I know I've got plenty of work to do on myself as far as the writer goes. So I try to just observe. But there's one example of that in my stuff that I kind of took a note out of Turnpike's book, and I've got this song called "It Rains in Tulsa" too, and the whole song is about this girl wanting to leave Oklahoma for the Pacific Northwest, and that's kind of the bulk of the song. And in the new record, which that song came out in 2022, so I mean it's 3.5 years old at this point. And that's right, yeah, that's right. And on this new record, I wrote a song called "Still Here," and it's kind of a almost like a sequel. It's like you don't really realize it's about the same person or the same story. They live separately on their own. They're their own two entities. But if you go through and look, you're like, I heard you're still out in Tulsa. I bet it's been pouring on you. And it's like, it's always talking about you love the rain in Tulsa, or you love the rain in Seattle. And that's why you left Tulsa in the first song. Well, the second song is about you never left. You must have found what you're looking for. And so it's this kind of continuation of the same story, but at the same time, they're separate stories that can stand alone. And so I'm trying to find new ways to kind of reference old songs and tie songs together, and kind of make it where it's like an Easter egg, where if you find out one thing, it makes you want to listen to the rest of the record and figure out what else has been referenced.
Now, when does the new album come out?
So it came out in middle of October. It just came out.
I thought you were referencing something newer.
Yeah. This is the Tornado Alley. Is that song's on there? But yeah.
Now, is that something you'd want to, like, going back to that, something you'd want to dabble with, where you like kind of almost write a whole record based on previous stories?
I don't know if it would be an entire record. In my mind, I'm a snob when it comes to like what I want an album to be, because I want my album to be something that I would want to listen to, and so I wouldn't personally want to listen to somebody's album that does that constantly, where it's like, this is what you're expecting. I think it's cool if it's maybe a third of the songs that do that, and then the other 2/3 of the songs you're listening for it. You may not ever find it. You may think there's something there, but it's not cut and dry. And it's kind of the same conversation I had with myself about the fun stuff is the rock and roll that we get to play live, the drop D and just going crazy. But realistically speaking, none of my favorite bands put out only rock and roll songs whenever they're a rock and roll band live. They like Whiskey Myers, for example. They're my favorite live band that I've seen, and those dudes go so hard, and they don't have a bad song, but you have this image of them as this hard rocking, just southern rock band, but you go and kind of add up the types of songs on their records. They never had just a full rock and roll album. I mean, there's acoustic songs, there's piano stuff. I mean, it's like this ebbs and flow of music, and I think there's something to that where you could have 10 banger ass rock songs, but after 4 songs, people know what they're getting.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to keep them entertained and busy. So I think you're kind of pissing in the wind if you do that. And I kind of had to break that to myself because that's kind of what I wanted to do. And I had to realize for the sake of like growing as an artist and marketability and just giving people something they won't get bored with, like I've got to make myself capable of hitting all these different points for the record.
Right. And it's funny you mentioned Whiskey, because Whiskey is one of those bands that can play a full on, plugged in show, right? And then play a full band acoustic show, and you're getting 2 very different shows, but 2 very similar shows. And the music is just as good regardless of how it's being played.
Yeah, it's my favorite for a reason. Yeah, they gosh, their shows. My husky wanted to join us, but yeah, they're I haven't seen them in a few years. Honestly, it's been probably 3 years. So I haven't even got to see any of their new stuff live, but I mean, I gotta imagine it's even better now.
Yeah, I saw them a few weeks ago here in Boston right before Christmas, and they did how they do that acoustic run in certain places every year.
Yeah,
And they did that, and it was mind blowing. Like, I was pleasantly surprised of what I got that night.
was it the Christmas deal?
No, they didn't do any Christmas tunes, but they do like the couple of weeks before Christmas, the run of acoustic shows, and they did it up here this year, and it was like I think the first time maybe ever that they did it up here, but it was awesome.
Yeah, I got to see Cody do that same show in McKinney, Texas at Hanks before they closed down, and man, that was a cool one right there.
I bet. I would love to have a conversation with that guy.
Oh yeah. Oh shit. Just pick his brain for a little.
Yeah. Now, so for you and for this year, what do you you're back. What is the ultimate plan here for 26?
The ultimate plan for 26. I mean, just like a few short goals. I want to hit more states. I want to play more dates. Obviously, I want to grow the numbers, and I guess the main goal is just to add on and grow with what we've already done. I mean, we're touring pretty hard, and we're hitting out of state markets for our 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th time in some places, and getting where we're selling some tickets in some places, and so we just want to just keep hitting the road and burning it down and keep hitting these markets that we've been hitting for a couple of years, and keep building a fan base and figure out how to freaking tap into these algorithms where it'll at least put music underneath people's noses. It's insane how much you have to play the game social media wise just to have anything relevant.
Yeah.
And I kind of experiment a little bit. I've had waves on TikTok where things have popped off, and then there's nothing for a little while, and I don't know. I'll go a month or a month and a half without posting anything at all, and just see how it reacts. And I don't know. I'm not the guy to be fine tuning the algorithm or figuring out what works or what doesn't at this point. But I think, if anything, with how much people blow up on social media and how quick they blow up on social media, that's a big thing. Like to become someone's band, they want to go see immediately with no road experience or little road experience. It's got to be pretty nerve wracking. Like you don't really have the tools to put on these shows yet early on, and I don't know. I think people are so oversaturated and overstimulated with what's at their disposal music wise that I personally think that people are going back towards this organic word of mouth live band type of thing, and that's where I think we'll thrive, because I mean we just constantly play shows, we tour, we get to open for our buddy Josh Malloy all over the place, and we get to capitalize on his crowds, and it definitely helps and makes a big difference that we're getting all these reps in front of a lot of people on big stages. And I think when the time does come, it's just going to be kind of second nature. Like we're just getting reps in, really. But I think that will play to our benefit with the way the scene is kind of going. With people leaning more into live shows and finding word of mouth live shows and stuff like that. I think that will play to our benefit for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, I think you're doing it right, and the music speaks for itself, and it sounds cheesy, but it makes it a lot easier when you as a person are relatable, and
Yeah.
from this conversation, you are, like we all have, like
Yeah.
like the shit we talked about is so, it's not nuance at all. Like it's not niche, it's not anything. It's like it's shit we all think about all the time.
Yeah, and I think about this too. Obviously, at a show, I go sell my own merch every show. I'll go sell it before the show, and if I've got somebody running merch during the show, that's good. But I'll always go to the merch booth pretty much right after the show, and for the most part, the rest of the night. And not only does that help with being able to sell to people, but it also lets people put a personality and a name to the face that they just discovered, because they had no idea who we were when they walked in seeing us open. They never have any idea who we are, and so you do a good job, you play a good show. I like to go and shake hands and talk to everybody, and I mean, like I really enjoy that. I genuinely enjoy that. It's one of my favorite parts of any given night is just getting to sit there and just see who was at the show, who enjoyed the show, who cares enough to come over and introduce themselves. And honestly, to take that a step further, it'd be cool as shit if someone wanted to come and start talking about pyramids or history at the merch table. And I know the show is why you came over there, but there's other shows, like let's talk about some history or something.
Dude, if somebody ever comes up to you after listening to this and says that to you, you have to tell me. Because
all right,
I mean, not that my ego fucking needs that, but that would be awesome to know.
No, I will definitely let you know, because that'll be something that'll click immediately. Be like, all right, I know where this came from.
Right.
And,
right.
But also, I kind of want to. I'm thinking of ways I could doctor at my merch table, just like that are talking pieces. Stuff that I don't know. Maybe put like a little pyramid toy or something on the corner. I don't know. But, yeah,
Right.
we'll figure something out.
Just make T-shirts with your name on it and a big ass pyramid on the back, and be like, "What do you think?" And just see what kind of reaction you get.
Yeah. That wouldn't be a bad idea. I've got one that right now it's black and white, but it's got a UFO sucking up a bison with lightning bolts beside it, and so I don't know, it's just a UFO piece, but it's kind of a talking point where it's like, oh, I love the alien one. All right, let's kind of keep this ball rolling then.
Right. I've always thought about that, where this is totally random, but I've always thought about making T-shirts or merch or whatever based on the episodes, right?
Oh.
Like whatever we talked about, like making it something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I know that's like for what we are, that's a fucking stretch and a half. And that would be a new shirt design every week, which would be a task. Right, it's a lot. But it would be a cool idea to do.
That would be neat. This one would definitely consist of like just ancient architecture.
Right. It's kind of like I've always wanted to also do like T-shirts at the end of the year that had all of the guests on it and the dates they aired. Like a tour T-shirt. Like,
yeah, that's cool.
That would be pretty badass. But again,
yeah. Well, we would have had this one done last year, and I kept having stuff come up.
So. No, it's totally fine, man. Like that's life happens, man. Sometimes it's mental health. Sometimes it's actual health. Sometimes cars get stolen. It's fine.
Yes. Sometimes your brother's car gets stolen and you gotta go track it down.
Right. Dude, when you texted me that the other night, I was like, this motherfucker is lying.
Yeah, I'm sure you probably. I wouldn't, fault you at all. What's crazy is this is a very small community down in this area, and my brother, he has this Lexus LS. It's like a '95, and it was at his place where he had his camper. Well, he just moved to another town like 20 minutes away. Well, he moved his camper. His car was still there, and he had some other stuff there he hadn't moved yet. And it was about 2 miles down the road from my parents' road. Well, my mom was turning out on the highway, and I'm in a hazmat suit, remodeling, doing stuff at this. Cleaning up. Well, she just so happens to see a white extended cab Chevy with a tow hook on it, towing this car down the highway. She gets a video of it, and she thinks that was my brother's car. And so she goes down to his place and looks, and sure enough, that car's gone. And so she calls all of us, and we're putting it on Facebook, and it's got like 200 shares within the first 20 minutes. Man. It's going crazy.
I can't hear you at all.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
What was the last thing you heard?
About your brother, his car at the camper.
Okay, so my mom got a video of the person stealing it, and just so happened to be passing him on the road, and she went and confirmed that was his car gone. And so then we sent out a manhunt Facebook post. She had a video of the guy's face through the window. So, I mean, we were like face matching people at this point. And that's what we spent all day doing. And ended up, somebody said it looked like this wrecker service in Dixon, Oklahoma. And so we called them, and I got a hold of them. And I'm like, hey, did you guys just roll in with a Lexus LS pulled behind a white extended cab Chevy? And they're like, yeah, I just pulled in the yard. It's like, that car's stolen. You need to not touch it. Leave it there. Don't scrap it, because they were going to scrap it and chop it. And so they set it to the side. I mean, ended up I had to go give a freaking police statement and everything. And
damn,
it didn't take no time at all before we had it figured out who sold it to the wrecker. Yeah,
that's
eventful.
wild.
Eventful for sure.
Damn. Well, I think that's the best way to end this.
Yeah,
I think it's a great note to end on. But man, like if you ever get up this way, or whatever you're doing, just let us know, and we'll push it out there and let people know what's going on and where you're gonna be, and new music and all that shit, man. Like it's been a real pleasure getting to chat and shoot the shit.
Absolutely, brother. I'll let you know when we get up that way, and likewise, I'll put together some links for you of YouTube channels and videos and
fuck
stuff.
Yeah. Absolutely. I can't wait. And then I'll do the same. Be like, hey, let's check this out.
Yeah, I do nothing but drive through the night, so I've got nothing.
I mean, my algorithm's a little questionable, but I'm sure we could find some, middle ground.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, man. Well, tell everybody how to follow along and do what you're doing, see what you're doing, and all that.
Yeah, you can find us anywhere you listen to music. Get your fix. It's just Trenton Fletcher. Facebook is Trenton Fletcher Music. Instagram is Trenton Fletcher Music. X is just Trent Fletcher. I mean, you can just look my name up and it'll pop up. I'm pretty much on everything.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again for taking the time, and good luck with the house stuff and getting back out on the road. And like I said, we look forward to hopefully seeing you sooner than later.
Well, thanks, man. It's been a pleasure, and take it easy. Holler at me.
Will do, buddy. Talk soon.
All right, good. All right.
See ya.
Well, there you have it, everyone. Our conversation with Trenton Fletcher, not Fletcher at all. Trenton Fletcher. I hope you enjoyed all of the fucking randomness that this episode was, because it was awesome. It is exactly what this show has to be all the time. That's it. That's all it has to be. So if you're going to be a guest or have been a guest and want to be a guest again and be part of the randomness, shoot an email. We got you. And that's it, guys. I hope you're having a great week. We will be back next week. I don't know who next week is. We do have some guests in February that are lined up and locked for those spots. There's 2 weeks in February that are definite goes for certain people. That's it. That's all I'm telling you. We'll see you next Monday, guys. Enjoy your week. Be good to each other. Cheers.